what's up guys? This is Robert Dickens Jr. with Southwind Percussion, and we're gonna be talking about our grip, form, and playing areas for bass drum. All right, let's start talking about our grip first. The first and most important thing is our fulcrum, right? So the hinge point or the axis where the stick or mallet is going to rotate around is between our thumb and index finger. This is the only place that we want to apply any pressure at any point in time on the mallet, because that's the pivot point for movement, right? The rest of our fingers are just gonna comfortably wrap around, right, without any, unnecessary pressure. So you'll notice too with the mallet, I only have maybe about an inch or so out the back from where my pinky is, and there's none of the mallet that's showing whenever I'm gripping the mallet in set position. All right, so just keep that in mind. One thing that I do notice with younger players is sometimes they like to have their thumb out, right? And the rest of the fingers just kind of down and in the back, right? One of the reasons why we don't want to do that is because that only allows the wrist to be the only axis or like fulcrum point that we can use. And that generally just can't go fast enough to maximize the bounce on the drum. So we want to make sure that that thumb and index finger are our primary point, because you can see how easily the mallet can move with that being the primary contact point and the rest of the fingers just being comfortably connected without putting any extra pressure on. Now let's start talking about the form. All right, so when we're standing behind the drum, some of these things will differ based on your size and then also the makeup of your carrier, whatever brand of your carrier is, because some drums sit a little bit closer, some sit a little bit further away. But generally, when you're behind the drum, you're trying to simulate the exact same space that you would have whenever you have the drum on, right? That's what you want whenever you're behind the drum on a stand, right? So notice some of these things you may need to adjust based on your size and the brand of drum and anything else. So the number one thing you want to think about is, what does it look like when the drum is on? And then just match that distance when you're on a stand. All right, so let's talk about how we actually get our mallets where they are. Obviously, we're starting here. This is our starting position with our grip still being the same that it was before. All right, and then from there, we want to come straight up. And generally, we want our wrist to elbow to shoulder to be a right angle, right? So that just means we want this to be nice and relaxed and just straight down. And then we want the wrist to elbow to be parallel to the ground. And generally that puts us in the center of the head, because we want that to be the most comfortable position that we can be in, because we have to be there for long periods of time. And if that is where we are, then we have a better chance of not having any tension so that we can play at our best, right? So think about where that is. If you need to adjust your drum from this angle, then that means you need to adjust it up or down until it is in that comfortable space that we're talking about, yeah? Also notice that based on the size of your drum, right, you may not be able to get a strict right angle, right? So for instance, on a larger drum, like 4 and 5, and also depending on if you have shorter arms, you may have to move forward a little bit. So that might change your angle a little bit. Same thing with the smaller drums. If you're tall and you're playing a very small drum that's a lot closer to your body, you may have to tuck your elbows a little bit to get into the center of the drum. But that, again, is just based off of your size, the size of your arms, and the size of the drum that you're playing, all right? Generally, the way that we want our mallets to move at Southwind is obviously in a straight line path, and we use a technique that is most commonly referred to as wrist break, right? So that just means generally you're the same way that there's a break in your wrist when you play on a flat surface. That's the exact same way that the mallet is going to move when you're playing on bass drum, right? So the mallet is gonna move straight out and straight in, right? And one of the keys that you can look at is just making sure that your thumb remains flat, right, the entire time. Just like if you were knocking on a door, right? That's the same way for the most part that your wrist is going to move. We don't want to turn the thumb away, right? Like this, with this kind of pathway, right? That is definitely another school of thought that a lot of other groups use that is just as, I feel like can be just as successful. But the way that we tend to do things here is we want to just make it as simple as possible and as close to a type of grip that you're already used to playing anywhere else, where your thumb just stays in that same plane, goes straight out, and then just comes straight back in. Now, as far as heights and things like that, right, obviously you want to try to go to full wrist extension, which will be like 12. And then when we start to go to 15, you'll notice there'll be a little bit more of an angle in the arm starts to get involved. And then the same thing as you go out to like 18 and things like that, right? It's the arm that really changes it. So the same way if you were playing on a flat drum, you would max out your wrist, and then to go up higher, you would extend from your arm. That's the exact same motion that you're gonna use on bass drum when you max out your wrist and come all the way out to here. It's that same motion, but just on a sideways plane, right? Last thing, playing areas, right? Generally for bass drum, we wanna make sure that we're playing in the center of the head, right? So again, one of the things that's going to help you the most with making sure that your mallets are in the center of the head is just memorizing your set position and making sure that you have your drums set to the correct height for your body, right? Make sure that the drum is set to a height that allows this to still be comfortable. And once that's correct, then you should be generally in the center of the head. Our primary playing areas are in the center. We also play up at the edge sometimes as well. And then obviously we have rim clicks and things like that. But that's pretty much it, all right? So hopefully this video has been super helpful to you and you can get a little bit more of an idea as to how we approach our grip, form, and playing areas at Southwind. Till next time, peace.